I arrived at the sports hall, late. The air was thick with the sharp echo of sneakers on polished floors, the thud of kicks meeting mats, and the low hum of distant conversations. And there it was. Someone was sitting on the lounge. The lounge. The only lounge in the entire hall. The one soft, sacred, squishy haven among a battlefield of torturous plastic chairs. The very one I'd quietly claimed through time, not by entitlement, but by quiet persistence. And now, someone new, a stranger, was in my spot. I didn't say anything. I just smiled, walked up, said hello, introduced myself and my child, then sat down in one of those miserable chairs that felt like they were designed by a sadist with a grudge against the human spine. And I thought that was the end of it. But I was wrong. So wrong. Because as the hall emptied and the evening wound down, a group of parents came toward me. Their faces weren't angry exactly, but tight, serious, like something sacred had been violated. One of them, eyes narrowed, leaned in. "Why did you let them sit there? You should have told them that's your seat." I blinked. "My seat?" Another voice cut in. "They stole your lounge. That's not okay." I looked around, genuinely confused. The lounge, last I checked, wasn't mine. It didn't have my name carved into the wood or my picture stitched into the cushions. It was just a lounge, a very comfortable one, but public, shared, free to all. I didn't realize it was a big deal, I said quietly. "It's just a seat." But that didn't land. They stared at me as if I'd committed social heresy. Their voices grew more hushed, more disappointed. One even told the coach. And that's when I realized this wasn't about a chair. It was about a story. One they had written without me. Let me take you back. Years ago, this sport became a part of my children's lives. We'd gather in this echoing hall, parents huddled together, watching their kids train under fluorescent lights. The only problem was the seating. Stiff, back-wrenching chairs, clearly designed to discourage lingering. If you sat for more than 3 minutes, your spine staged a rebellion. Then one day, salvation appeared. A kind family donated a lounge, a glorious, cushiony, slightly fluffy 3-seater. It became the holy grail of the hall. For the first year, people jostled for position like it was a throne. Rock, paper, scissors tournaments broke out. Wars of timing and luck. Whoever won the right to those sacred cushions earned 45 minutes of bliss, while others spasmed and twitched in ergonomic despair. But time passed. Kids aged out. Families moved on. And eventually, I was the last of the old guard left, the final survivor of the lounge wars. And so I sat. Each week, each session, I quietly took my place on that lounge, never staking a claim, never announcing it, but always arriving early enough to sit there. And then, something strange happened. New families came in, but no one challenged me. No one asked to sit beside me. They simply avoided the lounge. I didn't know why. I figured they preferred to stay close to the mats. Or maybe they liked those horrible chairs for reasons I couldn't fathom. It never occurred to me that they might be avoiding the lounge because of me. You see, I have ASD, autism spectrum disorder. I sometimes miss social cues, especially the unspoken ones, the ones that people expect you to just pick up. But I try to be kind. I smile. I greet people. I talk about sharks and martial arts and the weather. And apparently, that wasn't enough. Because while I sat there quietly week after week, they wrote a whole story in their heads. A story in which I was the unspoken owner of the lounge. The unapproachable one. The one who would surely snap if someone dared sit in my seat. They tiptoed around a fiction. And now, that fiction had crumbled because someone new, someone uninitiated, sat down. And I had the audacity to respond like a normal human being, to smile, to sit elsewhere, to not throw a fit or storm off in a tantrum. And that, it seemed, was the real offense. Because suddenly, everything changed. Now the parents started arriving earlier, strategically early, racing to claim the lounge, sitting there with smug grins when I walked in, like they had finally won, like they had defeated me, and I just didn't care. I brought a camp chair from home, a heated one, sat in it happily, let the drama swirl around me like a storm I had no interest in standing under. But they weren't done. One parent scoffed and said, "As if you don't know what you're doing." Another accused me of playing the long game for attention. And someone else? They went to the coach again. I started overthinking, wondering what I'd missed, what silent rules I'd violated by sitting on a chair. Maybe they thought I was some kind of criminal mastermind, that I'd psychologically manipulated the seating arrangement to become a lounge tyrant, waiting to be dethroned. Maybe they expected some kind of power play, and when none came, they were disappointed. Like they wanted the war. Like peace was boring. I couldn't make sense of it. The more I tried, the more absurd it became. Because here's what they missed. I never claimed the lounge. I never pushed anyone away. I never snapped, or growled, or so much as frowned. I just sat. And when someone else got there first, I let them. Because that's what adults do, right? The most surreal part was discovering that their restraint, their so-called politeness all those months, hadn't been kindness at all. It was fear, mistrust, miscommunication. And now that they realized I wasn't going to explode, they were angry at me for not being upset, for not claiming the seat, for not living up to the villain they had imagined. And suddenly the lounge became something else entirely. It wasn't a seat anymore. It was a symbol of projection, of ego, of how people write scripts in their minds and cast you in roles you never auditioned for. And when you don't play the part, they get mad. Not at the situation, but at you. Now I get smug looks, cold shoulders, a strange, simmering resentment. Not because I did something cruel or selfish, but because I didn't. Because I didn't gatekeep the lounge. Because I didn't get mad when someone sat in it. Because I refused to play their game. And somehow, that made me the problem. So, am I the asshole? Was I wrong for not making a fuss? For not protecting some imaginary territorial right? For not performing anger or staking a claim over something that was never mine to begin with? Honestly, I don't know. But I do know this. Sometimes, people aren't reacting to you. They're reacting to a version of you they've constructed in silence. A story they told themselves without your consent. And when you don't follow the script, they get lost, offended, defensive, because your behavior exposes the flaw in their assumptions. And that can be uncomfortable. But it's not your job to manage that discomfort. It's not your job to validate the story someone else wrote about you. It's your job to live your truth, quietly, kindly, authentically, even if that means bringing your own chair, even if that means sitting alone, even if that means never claiming a throne someone else thought you were guarding. You don't owe anyone a performance. You don't owe anyone a war. You don't have to be the queen of the lounge. Sometimes, you just want to sit, and that's enough. What a wild ride over a sofa in a sports hall. This story might sound silly at first glance. Parents getting territorial over a couch like it's Game of Thrones. But underneath that absurdity is something deeply human. It's about misunderstanding, projection, the stories we write about each other in silence, and the quiet consequences of never asking, never clarifying, never communicating. We've all been there, haven't we? Making assumptions about someone based on a glance, a habit, a silence. Maybe we thought we were being kind, or respectful, or just playing it safe. But in reality, we were building walls no one asked for. Here's what this story reminds me. If we don't talk to each other, really talk, we start talking about each other. And that's where things fall apart. So maybe the lesson here is simple. Kindness isn't silence. Respect isn't avoidance. And ownership? It's rarely about the chair. It's about how we choose to show up, even when the script in someone else's head doesn't match who we truly are. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been cast in a role you didn't choose? Have you ever been misunderstood by a group, a friend, a community, because they decided who you were without ever asking? Tell us in the comments, because sometimes sharing your story helps someone else rewrite theirs. Thanks for listening. This is AITA Stories, where judgment is just the beginning.